Alright guys, so a lot of you guys requested this video since you saw that the brand new Skullcandy Crusher 1080 ANC was announced last week. So I ordered a pair. I was excited to check these out. I have a long history with Skullcandy products in general, but more specifically the Crusher lineup. All the way from the beginning, when the Skull Crushers were released, it was a wired headphone that required like AA batteries to be able to have that haptic feedback or head shaking bass. You know, they've kind of come a long way. They released the Crusher, which was a wired Crusher headphone, still required batteries. And then they've evolved to Crusher Wireless, and then the Wireless ANC, and the ANC2, the Skullcandy Crusher Evo. I mean, there's a bunch of different products in the Crusher lineup, but the new one, which is the 1080 ANC, I think is the most interesting one yet, and that's because they have collaborated with Bose on this. Now, this isn't the first product that Skullcandy has collaborated with Bose. They did it a year or two ago with the Method 360 ANC. It was a wireless noise-canceling pair of headphones, and it was a huge jump in quality compared to the other Skullcandy wireless earbuds. Not something I've been impressed with. So I was very curious to see what Bose could do with the Crusher headphone from Skullcandy. And it's not exactly what you would think, but we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about all of the features. First thing I do want to point out is the price. I did kind of expect a huge price jump, because as soon as you usually attach Bose's name to anything, there's going to be a price jump. You're paying for that name, or you're paying for that collaboration, or whatever. But these come in at $279, which essentially is the exact same price as all of their other ones. In fact, it's even kind of lower, because I think it was the Skullcandy Crusher, or one of the ones in the lineup, those were $299. So I do like that it's still in that same price point. But this time around, it's not just sound by Bose. I mean, it is what's slapped on the box, but this time they also have the Bose Quiet Control ANC. So Bose has a hand in the noise canceling, and it also has Bose True Spatial. So Bose also has their hand in the spatial audio. So there's a lot of different things here, but the first thing I really want to talk about is the look and the design of these. Now, it is very well built. You can tell it does have some good weight to it. The sliders, the adjustments move very smooth. The swivel goes in and out. It does fold down if you do want to get it to be pretty small. I do want to point out, though, I feel like the design is kind of lazy. These headphones have kind of looked the same for years now. They're not really doing anything that's making these stand out. And in fact, there's not really a whole lot of color options. This was something that Skullcandy used to be very well known for. And if you take away the new little knob that they have for the bass, it essentially just looks like the other headphones that they've released in this lineup over the past few years. But the knob and also the other controls on the other side, which are now, also buttons, but they're joysticks. And I feel like this kind of borrows from the Drop THX Panda, which I was a huge fan of the joystick controls on those. But I don't really like that the joysticks are recessed into the headphones. It kind of makes it feel like it's a little harder to control. I know you could just kind of slide it with your finger. You don't have to actually move it from the side. I am happy to say that it does give you control over everything, but the controls do take a little while to get used to, because there's two different joysticks, and there's a custom button on the other side that's next to the bass knob that your bass wheel that you adjust the bass with this time. And speaking of that bass wheel, they've kind of evolved this over time. It used to be like a button, and then it was a slider, and then it's been different things, and I don't feel like the wheel is the most effective. I feel like there's huge gaps between, going from no bass to all bass. If you kind of want to slightly adjust things, I don't feel like it does that very well. I feel like it goes from 0 to 40 to 80. I mean, it really feels like some huge jumps between the bass. So as accurate as you would think, having an actual wheel to kind of turn, it doesn't really respond that way. Now, you are going to want to download Skullcandy's app to be able to control some other things in here. It is how you turn on the multi-point connection, so you can connect to more than one device at a time. It is also how you would switch these into the low latency mode. If you're going to use these for movies or for gaming, it'll just kind of help cut down on lag. There are some different EQ options in there. I, again, would just say leave it like it is. It also has Skullcandy's personalized EQ where you go through the hearing test. I actually had to go through this a few times because I would go through the test and then it would like reset the app. It would basically kind of like kick me out, and it never saved my hearing test, which kind of sucked because you just go through, the left ear, the right ear, hearing these different things, telling it what you can hear, and then right at the end of the test, it just resets. And it was just strange, but it was kind of annoying to have to do this. But I didn't really feel like the personalized EQ kind of hit exactly what I would like. So I actually like the tuning the way that it is out of the box. This is where the Bose or Sound by Bose comes in. So I don't think this is the pair I would say that I would mess around with the different EQ options. And then another thing within the app, you do have the spatial audio. This is a love-hate relationship for me. I hate it. I'm not a fan. I do love that the options there, if I'm going to use it for movies or gaming, at least it is a feature that's there for those that like it. I'm just not a fan of what it does to the music. I don't even care that Bose has their hand in it this time. It's still not good. It's still just not something I'm a fan of. And then the other thing is the noise canceling. Now, I do want to say this. You would essentially think if Bose's name is attached to noise canceling, it's going to be amazing. And at first, it was kind of weird for me because I was on my phone, I switched it into noise canceling, and I was like, this really isn't doing anything. And it was because my head was down, and I noticed if my head was down, the noise canceling would not come on. As soon as I lifted my head, the noise canceling came on, and everything just started to just get quiet. It isolated me from everything else, and I was like, this is strange. So I looked back down to my phone, and the noise canceling shut off again. I don't know if this is some weird bug. I don't know if it's something wrong with my headphones specifically, but there is something between me putting my head down that's not allowing the noise canceling to come on. But as soon as my head's up, and even if I tilt it all the way up, the noise canceling stays on. It's so strange, but it is definitely something that I wanted to point out. But the noise canceling is actually very effective. I still am not going to say that it is on Bose's level. It feels like Bose is saying, well, we can't give them the exact same noise canceling that we give our headphones, because then it would give people a reason to look at the Skullcandy in comparison to the Bose headphones. And we don't want a direct competitor, even if we do have our name attached to the other. So it does seem like that's what they're doing. It's not, it doesn't have that vacuum, that complete, just everything shuts off the second that you put the headphones on your head. But it is very effective against higher and lower tones. So I was impressed with the noise canceling. Same thing with the ambient mode. It does a really good job of pulling in the sounds around me. So if I do want to hear my environment, I did feel like that mode worked extremely good as well. Now, as far as what it comes with inside the box, it does come with the fabric bag that I've seen with their other ones. It kind of has the buckle to kind of lock the headphones in. But there's no pouches inside to house the 3.5mm cable that it comes with, or the USB-C cable that it comes with, which this is how you would charge these. So the bag just essentially feels like it's just for the headphones themselves. But going back to the charging cable, and speaking of the charging, battery life is very good on here. Now, it is all going to be affected on how much of the bass you're going to have these like dialed up. So, kind of keep in mind it will vary. But on a full charge, you can get up to 60 hours total. So that's really nice to have that. But if you do happen to pick them up and they are dead, it also has a very impressive fast charging feature where a 10-minute charge will give you 4 hours of use. So that will always come in handy, especially if you're somebody like me that doesn't always make sure that your headphones are charged. Now, if you're going to use these for taking phone calls, I feel like the mics are doing a very good job here, but you guys can be a judge by listening to a quick test here. So here is a quick mic test outdoors using the Crusher 1080 ANC. Just like normal, I can hear an AC unit off to the side. It's not really a windy day, but I still can hear some traffic like off to the side as well. But this is just to give you an idea of what it would sound like if you were to take a call in public. So now let's go ahead and talk about the sound. And in my opinion, I think this is the most important thing about these headphones. It's the most difference between these and the other ones that are in the lineup, because the sound by Bose actually makes a huge difference. Now, is this an audiophile type headphone? Absolutely not. It's not going to be that. Anything that has that haptic feedback base, it's meant to be fun. It's meant to have everything just kind of bumped up, like literally bumped up. and it's a fun headphone to listen to. But I will say the sound is more finely tuned this time. It feels like things are having more of a purpose. You can hear a lot more of the details. It doesn't sound like it's trying to amp up anything like way too much. If you were to dial the bass knob all the way down, it's actually quite impressive, the overall sound that these have. But being able to add that element of punch by dialing the bass in just makes this a more refined experience than, you know, the previous Skullcandy Crusher headphones. I do feel like the sound is a lot better. I just can't put it on par with the other noise canceling headphones that are in this price range. So it basically is giving people a different kind of alternative when they're looking at noise canceling headphones. They now can have a headphone that has effective, like very effective noise canceling, but also have really good sound in both non-bass mode or just dialed up all the way bass mode. But again, dialing the bass all the way up is just not enjoyable for me. And I'm a bass head. I feel like it's just way too much. It doesn't feel as loose or as sloppy as the previous Crusher headphones. Everything definitely feels a lot more tightened up in this pair. So it is impressive what they've been able to do. Again, the sound is better. The sound quality is better. The bass is not as controllable. Again, it feels like they're, I don't want to say handicapping it. It just feels like they were good at it being here and then here and then here, but not necessarily all the ones in between. It doesn't feel like you have as much control. I know I've said that previously, but that's a huge thing, because if you feel like you're listening to a song and you're like, man, I just want it just a little bit more, this pair for me just didn't do that. It felt like if I wanted a little bit more, I just had to go up to the next level and not just the next slight adjustment up. So there are times where this was a frustrating pair because I wanted a little bit more, but not as much as it was going to jump from one to the other. But again, my overall opinion on these is these are fantastic. They're fun. They are expensive, but they're as expensive as they were before. And now you have some more refinements by Bose, which has definitely helped with the noise canceling. And the bass this time around feels more intentional and not just like an accessory slapped onto the headphone. I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels like it's built into the sound a little bit more. And not just this added thing. So they're definitely making improvements every time that they release these. And I do feel like this is the best so far in the Crusher lineup, but it does have its little hiccups. And maybe these are things that can be fixed with, you know, firmware update. Maybe you can have more slight, you know, adjustments in the bass, and then the noise canceling thing, which is weird that it shuts off when I'm looking down. I don't know what that's doing, but again, it is something I want to point out. But guys, that wraps up my video on the brand new Skullcandy Crusher 1080 ANC. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.